So up next, we're going to be looking at some of the security and digital management and what works. And so we're going to have our good friends from Ohio, Todd, Eden, Gary Westoby. Let's see, make sure I get anybody. Anybody else who wants to? Mr. Kuhn, want to come up? No? Okay, you want to be mine? All right. I don't want to pressure anybody coming up. One of the greatest challenges we have running youth correction facilities, of course, is the infamous need of security. Of course, we're not only talking about, the firewalls, but what works with Google. We have a new technology that we're using. We have a sharing platforms that goes on with some of the Google apps for education. And a lot of our team members, some have and some have not, the knowledge of using it. And one of the key issues that had happened to us was, okay, we have the platform now, but we have young people that are going to other places they shouldn't, sharing when they shouldn't, and we have a lot of proactive failures. I'll put it to you that way. So what I mean by that is sort of like we failed. Okay, what's next? And I'm very grateful to the superintendents and the camp directors out there that actually don't completely pull a plug and say, I'm not doing this anymore. And they're coming in there and they're saying, okay, what's the fix? And we have people in technology that say, let's figure out where the gaps are, let's assess, and again, it's a proactive failure. Let's reverse it and let's make it better. So along that line, what we ended up doing was having to go out on the internet and also discuss with Google, engineers, etc., is what is the current state? What are people using now? And we find out that, oh, by the way, no one else is really pursuing this as big as Oregon is, so we're going to have to find our own destiny. And so phone calls were made, research was made, and so we discovered a platform. It was called Softlink. And I'm not going to go into much detail because I'm going to take the wind out of these guys, but there's several layers that they're going to cover up, how we do security and how we apply it in youth corrections. So how many of you right now have experience with Google Apps for Education? Please raise your hand. Okay, good to see. And have any of you ever had any issues with security with young people? Okay, we almost have a choir going on here. So you can see the importance of this. The security is hand in hand with trying to get the kids focused. Because if they get offline and they do other things, then they're not focusing on education. And we also always hear about what if a young person contacts a victim? Or what if a young person posts some inappropriate photographs or is able to, update their Facebook. And believe me, we've all had things like this happen dealing with young people. But the fact of the matter is we cannot reverse education and shut it all down and say, we're going back to chalk, we're going back to pencils, and we're going to run with it. That's something that we can't do. While they're starting this up, I want to give recognition to a few of my friends here. Eden Nelson. Eden has been a diehard helping us bring together what's needed to get young people online. And he is behind the scenes helping with the identification of young people, the young people that come in and out of the system every day. And it was through interagency agreement and through process that we were able to link that up. And Eden's been the point man for security and for helping us persuade. Same going with Mr. Gary Westoby. Gary's been a asset to the agency, headlong with Google, the apps, roll out Chromebooks, and also getting some of the Rachel servers up. I really appreciate it. And Tracy Hightower in the back, she's fantastic for making sure everyone's online and getting what needs to get done. You guys ready? All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Frank. Appreciate it. We're actually videotaping this, so there's several other states that are interested in watching the video afterwards. I also want to introduce Todd Broceus from Softlink. We're going to be talking about the security and the digital management of the youth. It's something we call the security bubble for the youth. We put the concept together to kind of graphically illustrate what we'd have in place to not only protect the public but to protect the students as well. So we'll go ahead and get started here. As Frank said, Eden has been very instrumental, and I want to thank Technology. Hello, there we go. I want to thank Cascade Technology Alliance, which is also the subsidiaries is Willamette ESD, Multnomah ESD, and Northwest Regional ESD. Work in collaboration with Columbia Gorge too. Okay, so I missed that one, but that's not an OYA. That's why I didn't get it. But they've been very instrumental in partnering with us to help put this presentation on, and also to help bring the network up. We have about 1,400 students, and across all 10 of our OY facilities and several JDHs as well that Cascade Technology manages. So there's a continuum of service that is in place for these youth. We have about 380-ish devices currently on that network. So without Cascade Technology Alliance and all of the support, Guy in the background there, in the back row, it's been very helpful to bring this through to this vision to fruition. So I want to thank you all. Todd has been very instrumental in helping to get us one standard platform to be able to monitor the students and give us some other safety precautions as well. Todd will get a chance to talk a little bit more about that as we go through this presentation. So we'll go ahead and kick it into gear here. So this is what we call the student security bubble, and we're going to cover it a little bit in depth here. See if I can juggle. So the first thing I want to touch bases on that James touched bases on initially is the laws and the rules. The first step that we had to take, and Frank was the one that initiated this, is we had to change with the legislature and our administrative rules what we can and cannot do with the youth. So we put together OAR 416. We're going to cover that a little bit. That's part of our frontline security. The security login, which we're going to get to. We have behind-the-scenes security. We're going to break these all down here through the presentation. And then we also have recovery options if something goes awry or if you have some suspicions that we can recover stuff. And then also, who do you contact for your technical support? So we'll go ahead and jump in the to try to keep things rolling here. So the frontline security is the OAR's Oregon Administrative Rules that was put together, and that's what gave us the permission to allow the youth to have specified type of access to technology and corrections. So they have limited educational employment or employment-seeking purposes. They have to have permission from the facility, superintendent or camp director, and also from the school. And they have to have the restrictions in place. We'll talk about those in just a little bit too. There has to be a written authorization. We have a note that we are an agreement that is signed off with the youth. They agree to that as part of their digital citizenship, the digital learning, so they know what they're getting into, and there's accountability as a result of that. And the youth can have access to email if needed for education, for education or for vocation purposes, but they cannot log into the email accounts themselves. The staff or teacher has to do that. Internet is approved with OY or a school staff present, so you can't just have free access to the internet. Only the staff can log in. The exception to that is what Eden was able to come up with. He masterminded this. We have we'll get into this in just a little bit, where the login looks like a Gmail account, but it's not. It's just simply a login to get onto the network. And it must be directly supervised if they're on the internet. And the students must promptly disclose anything. If there's a pop-up that comes up that goes past the screens or filters or something like that, they have to notify staff immediately. So that's part of our frontline rules that we put into place initially. We got to hold this up here good in order to make sure to get connection. So this is the secure login. It looks like a Gmail account to everybody that logs in, but all the person can do is log into the Google Apps for Education network. So they have to enter their username once, and they have to enter the password twice to get in. And Eden, you want to talk a little bit about the Active Directory and how that was locked down?
Yeah, just to start with, we needed a method to make sure the students had their accounts and were ready to go basically day one. So with interagency agreements to make sure that we were getting rosters from the state, and students receive accounts at midnight every day. If they come into a juvenile justice or a juvenile detention facility, currently they're being semi-manually rostered, but the accounts in the future transfer up to the state facilities if necessary. So those all go into Active Directory, obviously, and use the Google synchronization tools to provide those accounts. And then we limit login access via, this is kind of technical, but single sign-on, which redirects any attempt to log into the domain to internal servers. And that login page is only accessible by privileged internal networks. So there's no possibility of outside individuals logging into that account to provide, have a conversation with a student or anything like that. So, and we also use all aspects of the Google domain console to restrict internal to external communication. And then we use some other tools to further restrict internal communications. Obviously, the platform is a collaboration platform, so we use some third-party tools to limit that collaboration where we don't want it to happen.
Thanks. So the next thing, part of the frontline security, is the acceptable user policy. This helps develop digital citizenship with the youth, makes it real. It lays out the classroom expectations for use with the digital resources. It teaches the kids responsibility. Also, it holds them accountable because once they sign on for it, every time they log in, they have to agree to use that. And this is also customizable by OU, and OU is an organizational unit. So that's the term that Google uses to be able to identify different schools or different classrooms or different levels. So we just refer to them as OUs, organizational units. So it's customizable by OU if you want to have it customized for your specific school or your specific classroom, that we can do that. The next thing I want to talk a little bit about is the Softlink security.
Well, first, I'd like to thank Gary and Frank for inviting me to come. As I mentioned, I'm from Ohio, so it was a little bit of a trip to come out. Our Softlink, just as a little background, my company has actually been providing classroom management solutions since the mid-'80s. We do hardware and software solutions. Started out with hardware, and of course, we've chosen Softlink for your particular facilities. Softlink gives you a variety of abilities in the classroom environment. Some of the things that Gary has listed here, you can actually blank, or the term that we use is lock the screens on the Chromebooks as the class is actually proceeding. At that point in time, they're unable to use the devices. We actually provide real-time monitoring of all the devices, so you have a thumbnail of each one of those devices on your screen, so you can actually manage and see exactly which students are doing what during your class session. We actually have some web filtering that's actually put into place. So above and beyond any proxy servers that might be filtering web traffic, the actual teachers can individually decide what websites the students should be able to view. This comes in handy, especially if you have online testing or some things that you might want the students to only have access to a single website at a time. You can restrict them to only access that particular website without having to contact your IT staff in order to put those restrictions in place. We also do real-time monitoring with audio. You can actually also record the history of the internet traffic. So not only are you able to see what they're doing in real time from the thumbnail view, or you can actually open the thumbnail thumbnail view up into a windowed view, you can also see what they've actually done through that class session. So at any point later in the week, if there is an actual question as to whether or not a student visited a site that was inappropriate, you can go back and view that history and see exactly what they may have done. And then, of course, one of the most, one of the things that, of course, is very beneficial, is the multi-platform capability. So what you're able to do is, no matter what type of device you actually have in your classroom, you're going to be able to monitor and manage those devices, whether it's Windows, Mac, Linux, Chromebooks, iPads, Androids. We'll have a solution that integrates with this one particular package so that the teacher can actually see those devices and they're using the same familiar interface no matter what device they're actually using in the classroom.
Let's step back just a second and talk about why Softlink was selected. It wasn't at random. We demoed quite a few products. We had listing in place. We had some monitoring system, and we also have some Hopara licenses, and we demoed all those. We have those running in different facilities, but what Softlink gave us is the ability to configure the Chrome devices in a superior manner than any other platform that we demonstrated. Hopara works fairly well. It ties into the API and the Google Apps for Education domain, but it's somewhat cumbersome to get the students in and out, and with the transient nature of our students, it's tougher to keep those groups updated. So Softlink gives us the ability to configure the device on the back end, reliable, and we just simply didn't get that ability from any other product, and we were very, very happy when we found Softlink.
Okay, so that's the first part of the student security bubble. That's the frontline stuff that we keep the student protected with and also keep the public protected with. Next, we're going to look at the behind-the-scenes information. We're going to start out with the Blacklist, and on the Chrome Management Console. Rich, go ahead. I'm just repeating it for the recording. So, Rich, your concern is that you have to be monitoring the Softlink all the time in order to be able to catch the student. So what we can do is we'll have some discussions about that. So a couple things that you were worried about was the youth can log off and log back on. They can get back on even if they've been restricted from if their system has been blocked. Okay, we'll look into that and talk about that a little bit more. But we're going to talk about another portion of Softlink for recovery a little bit later in the slideshow that might be of interest to you, Rich and Andrea. So we'll cover that in just a couple slides, okay? As far as the history part. Right, okay. So there's a couple things that we're going to be able to help with that. And hopefully this will enlighten you a little bit more. So we'll talk about that a little bit later in this slideshow. So the Blacklist is managed by the Google Chrome Management Console, which is done by the IT departments. And what we have typically done, I want to identify that I've highlighted Ocean Dunes High School here. That is the format of the default format where all of the imports of the students come into is into Monroe High School students, Newbridge High School students, Ocean Dunes, and so on and so forth. Underneath Ocean Dunes is another sub-OU, organizational unit, which is called VSOI. But I want to talk a little bit about the Blacklist. And what we have by default is we blacklist everything under the sun. The asterisk in the red circle indicates that everything in the world is blocked. And then the way we get around that is we have an exceptions list to that. So the OU directly underneath it, the VSOI OU, has no blockage on there. So maybe the VSOI students, which are at Ocean Dunes High School, those would be the students that are doing college stuff that have more access to more resources available to them. So this is how you can individually manage your students. the default is everything's blocked, and then there's an exceptions list, which we're going to get into next. So the blacklist exceptions list, it's managed by the Chrome console. It's customizable by a different OU, and it only lists the sites that are accessible, and it has to be managed by the IT staff. In other words, it's not manageable by the teachers themselves. So in this case, the Ocean Dunes, which is what the illustration we've been looking at, has an OU blacklist exception, and there's just a small sample of what's in there. It can be, I think, 10,000 different websites. So you can make exceptions for any websites that you want. And we have certain policies that are accepted right now that are accessible for the students as well. But this is an IT management function. That's why it's a behind-the-scenes piece. Correct. Yeah, you can set up however many OUs you want, but presently, because of the Active Directory, that has to be done at the IT level. Future state, which we're going to get into that, we want to empower the teachers. We want to empower to be able to move the students around in the OUs themselves. I don't think we're going to have them create the OUs, right? Okay, so if you want to lay out a schematic of how you want the OUs organized, then we can go ahead and build that structure into your individual school. Oh, okay, we'll have to evaluate. I'm sorry, I'm speaking out of turn here. Sorry, Eden. But we can evaluate that and look at the options for doing that, and try to look at the bigger picture and see how it's going to impact the rest of the school and so on and so forth. So the short answer, Stephen, is yes, they can structure that in that fashion. That's the benefit of using the Google Apps for Education in the Chrome console. Okay, thank you, sir. Let's see. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about network filters. With Cascade Technology Alliance, they use open source software known as the NX filter, which is free, open source, and it's very user friendly. And it's another means by which we are able to protect the students and filter out what they can or cannot see. So interesting quote, content control software determines what content will be available, or perhaps more often, what content will be blocked. So you want to talk a little bit about that?
Just a quick correction on that. It's not open source, but it is free licensing to schools for education. So NX Filter is a DNS-based filtering system. It's focused on SIPA compliance, but it gives us the ability to do time of day filtering. We use some other filtering. I mean, there's actually about 3 or 4 layers of filtering in between the students and the internet. It starts with that Google Chrome, goes to our DNS content and content filters, and then we also would sometimes be doing filtering at the firewall level, outbound. It's a DNS-based filtering solution. NX Filter is one of the limitations or successes of the Google Apps for Education and Google Apps platform is that it's designed for collaboration. Obviously, we want to restrict collaboration. We want to between students. There's certain requirements to not let individuals communicate with other individuals, and instead of saying, okay, this is a undefeatable roadblock, we went ahead and found some software that remediates the situation as opposed to stops us from moving ahead with the system. So what CloudBlock does is it finds collaboration or sharing between students in near real time, removes that sharing, notifies staff, and also allows you to view the violating content. So it ties into the back-end API of Google Docs, and it allows you to investigate that content, see if there was any content in there that really needs to be dealt with above and beyond just the sharing violation. So it's kind of a stopgap measure until we can move forward with Google and get some improvements that we're really hoping for in the future.
Thanks, Eden. So this actually concludes the behind-the-scenes part of the security bubble. So as the students, the blacklist is in place, the exceptions list is in place. We have the NX filters and other filters that are in place, as well as cloud lock. As you can see, that protection bubble gets more and more impenetrable. So the next thing we want to talk about is recovery options. And I'm going to let Todd talk a little bit about the recovery options that are available. And this kind of will answer what Rich was talking about earlier as far as having the ability to go back in 2 or 3 days later. And I want to also say that in OYA, if we have a breach, we rarely catch it in real time because the kids are so covert and trying to be sneaky about it, but they can't keep their mouths shut. And it filters down on the cottage. And usually 2 days later or 3 days later, we'll get a call and treatment manager or superintendent say, hey, you need to check so-and-so's history or check this, that, and the other. And then you can go back in and then look back methodically at the details of what was happening. So Todd, you want to talk a little bit about that?
So I believe we focused on a few of these things already. We didn't mention about the screen capture capability. Of course, if you do capture them in real time, you can take a screenshot of their particular offense at that time. It does have their Gmail account, the actual date and timestamp embedded into the image as well. So all that information is actually there at your disposal. And we also have available, I'm not sure if Gary has that on one of the files. I did bring some brochures, but I also do have a comparison sheet because even though we do support different platforms, depending on the actual programming language, there are limitations to the different platforms. So if you're interested in knowing what functions and features are available for the different platforms, let me know and I'll make sure you have that comparison sheet. But you'll see here that some of them say Windows only, some indicate Mac. So if we go down the list quickly here, the web history, of course, that is for Windows and Chrome. And as you mentioned before, if you don't catch them in the act, and if the offending page is something like a Google Images page and it's an actual search, yes, you don't have an idea of necessarily what those particular thumbnails looked like. There is, however, depending on what type of space you want to dedicate on the instructor's machines or on the network, you can set up Softlink so that it will actually literally open up all the devices in separate windows. And when you do that, you have the ability to actually record everything that's going on. So depending on what type of storage space you want to allocate, if you want, you can record the entire session the students are sitting through. You can actually literally have a recording of each device for the entire class session. So that's an option that if you're concerned that they might have done something while you weren't actually at your desk, that is a possibility where you could actually play back a recording, fast forward through it just to see what they may have been doing during that lapse in monitoring. Yes? Yes, that is on Chrome. We have a key logger, and that's something that I know it's been asked a lot for in the Chrome books, and we're looking into possibly implementing that in that particular version. But right now, it is only available in Windows. That, of course, records all the keystrokes. It also gives you the ability to indicate some words. So if you want certain words to register into the history, it will actually keep track of how many of those words were typed in while you were being monitoring. We have the print history, application use in Windows and Mac and Linux, and of course audio recording as well. So if you do any language labs, or if you're just concerned with what students may be saying, if they do have a live mic on, you can actually record what's going on there as well.
Oh, I should have let you take a look at this slide too. This basically overviews a little bit about what Todd was talking about on the Softlink, and it just you've already pretty much covered this information here. Do you want to?
Earlier, I was speaking to one of you, and you had mentioned another package and what it was enabling you to be able to do. I believe when you're viewing a single student, you didn't have access to what the rest of the class was doing. So this is a screenshot of Softlink. You can see that I actually have a few different platforms connected. There's an Android. I don't believe there's a Mac in there. The two windows that I have up are Chromebooks, but you can see that if you have an actual extended desktop space, you are going to be able to open up as many student windows as you'd like. So even while you are viewing a particular student, or you want to take a screenshot of their screen, you still have an actual live shot of everyone else in the class as well. So yes. In terms of what you're doing when you're actually viewing them, you cannot actually do remote keyboard and mouse control. And there's a few functions that we had some remote access initially built into the software, but there were also some limitations that putting that in place limited some of the deployment issues. And so we temporarily disabled some of those features in order to get some of the other things fixed that would allow deployment to be a lot easier, as Eden mentioned earlier. And maybe even I might be able to get some connections with Google to see what we can do about fixing a couple of the other issues. But one of the main things is we don't really have a way of capturing the actual mouse on the student Chromebook. So one of the unfortunate factors, if we were remotely controlling them, is if you're trying to actually show them how to go through a progression of steps, if they can't see their mouse moving or where you're clicking, it's really not, unless you're actually there and being able to verbally say, now I'm clicking on this and now I'm clicking on this, they don't have that visual indicator as to what's occurring on the screen. So it's also a little, it's not quite as helpful as it would be if you were able to monitor that. The other issue is that it also depends on the language that the website is actually written in. Not everything was able to be controlled depending on the actual language that was being used.
It's simply the way that the operating system was developed, and it's security focused, from start to finish, and giving full remote access or giving you a full output of a screen in real time is very difficult to work around on the platform. Well, and speaking from the technical side, there's no way that I have time to monitor students with this. I can definitely configure it to do what the things that Todd is saying that I can do. I can definitely work with the staff to get the server configured where we're getting the recordings, we're getting the key loggings, but it's really an administration at the school level and the staff who would need to use this. Now, when there is an incident, we go back to our tools. We help do a little bit of analytics. We do the e-discovery for them and help guide them into the, if they give us dates and times, etc. We go and get that information that is needed. It's the way that we plan to have it configured is a centralized server, and individual staff members can have a console. So we would use that central server to do the configuration, do the key logging configuration, or whatever features that are required. Each at this point, the way I have it configured is basically the whole facility has one classroom, and those classrooms are configured the way that those would be configured the way that the staff and the administration requested.
And to briefly speak to you a little bit about whether it's IT-based or classroom management-based, some of these limitations, like we said, are more based upon also, like Eden said, the operating system, what it's going to restrict us to do. But I can tell you that in terms of our customer base, we sell to K through 12, we sell to universities, we sell to corporations, and we sell to the military. So in those regards, most of our customers are using it in a classroom management based mode, not in the actual IT management mode. It is to monitor and make sure people are staying on task, not necessarily, even though we have a tech console that will allow you to help manage the devices and see what's going on. I think overall it's being used as a training tool to just help your teachers, help your trainers, help whatever environment you're actually teaching in. I think that's the big thing. But in terms of you also saying if we could actually control the devices, even though we're not giving you the remote keyboard and mouse capabilities while you're viewing them, at any point in time, even while you're viewing a client, if you need to, you can select the lock button, and that will blank their screen, and that will deny them access to their device completely. So if you do notice them doing something that you want to make sure that they stop doing, at any point you can actually disable that device completely during the class session.
Oh, I wanted to go back to just a Softlink really quick, and what Todd said. No matter what in a classroom environment, it seems that everyone wants to monitor the classroom, and this is not a individual, or it's not isolated to Chromebooks or our instance. This is a remediation tool that we're using to enable us to move forward in education. We can't, if we let this be a roadblock, if we focused on, it can't do this, or they can log out and log back in, we would just give up and go home. We've got to move forward and make sure that the students have the access that they need. We can't just say no.
Thanks, Eden and Todd. Appreciate it. The next thing is, yes, sir.
Yeah, you can send, actually there's chat sessions where you can actually have two-way communication with either an individual or a group of individuals or the entire class. We have one-way messaging that can go out where they're unable to reply. Did that answer your questions? Okay. The annotate that you mentioned is actually, it's for Windows only at the moment. What that allows you to do is, in a Windows environment, you can literally use a tool built inside Softlink where you can actually draw on their screen, or on the instructor screen. So if you needed to highlight key terms, you can do so.
Just to touch on the difference between the Softlink and the Hapara tool. Hapara gives you access to the student's inbox in real time, their drive in real time. It is a little more cumbersome to configure, but it gives you a larger overall view of what the students are doing at any time. I don't believe its remote control or its remote view is quite as good. It's somewhat delayed. It's about every 5 seconds, where Softlink's is fairly rapid. I think it's once a second or more often.
Thanks again, guys. Appreciate it. So the last part of the recovery element is Google Vault, and we have Google Vault turned on. The retention of all the records in Google Vault is indefinitely. We don't have an expiration or a sunset on any of the records presently. But we can go back if we know the dates and times of an incident or have a suspicion. We can search for email, Google Drives, anything like that. If you suspect something that's going wild or weird, you can talk to the IT staff through the support system, and then we can do a search on that particular student or that particular time frame of a group of students, or however you want to split it out, and then export those and then save those for future reference. And if there's anything that's might need to be some forensics with law enforcement or whatnot, we have the capability of pulling that out too. So that's what we have with Google Vault already as well.
And one of the advantages of the collaboration platform with Google Docs is there's a complete revision history. So just because the doc that you pull up today, the current version, it's blank, or that doesn't mean that we can't recover revision back, over time. It's almost instantaneous each revision. So if you type I hate my teacher or something worse in that document and then erase it, that doesn't mean that we don't know about that anymore. We have full revision history in those documents. So when we recover them, we can go back through that revision history, and just because it's blank or it says something nice today doesn't mean we don't know about the mean thing that it says yesterday.
Thanks, Eden. So we've covered the frontline protections, we've covered the backline protections, and then the actual recovery is the Softlink history and, of course, the Google Vault, which just is some additional layers that are added in there. As we move forward, we want to talk about who do we contact for technical support, for administrative support and whatnot. As Frank and Tracy and myself, I didn't have room to put my name in there, so sorry, you guys get all the phone calls. And then as far as technical support goes, you'll have to go through your local IT departments. As we mentioned at the onset of this presentation, Cascade Technology Alliance actually manages the IT services for 6 of our 9 schools in OYA. The other 3, which would be Riverbend, Eastern Oregon, and also Rogue Valley, would have to go through their IT departments for any kind of assistance there. And Softlink has a support phone number, as well as a support email if you have any questions there. And the reason we're including Softlink is agency-wide, we've elected to go ahead and pick up the licenses for all the schools, so we're using the same platform across all of them, and it's going to make it easier. And this comes the closest to meeting all of our needs and expectations of monitoring software for the students. I just sent off yesterday the approval for the licensing bid. We should have the licenses probably the first part of next week. So it was just an email that I had yesterday. I forwarded it on to Frank. He should be doing his magic, and it should be active here pretty quick.
Just wanted to follow up on, in the juvenile detention centers, we're using some of this. We're using basically all this security, but we're allowing access to only certain aspects of the Google Docs platform, the Google domain platform. At some facilities, it's not acceptable to remediate the sharing violations. It must not happen. And at that point, again, we don't say no. We say, okay, well, here's what we can do. We can keep you in the continuum. We can keep you in that flow and keep the students working, but let's restrict the access. Let's restrict, further restrict internet access, further restrict, do not turn on Google Docs because of the sharing possibilities. A lot of this, what we'll talk about today, is focused on the statewide, but we're implementing this at different levels and with different access, but on the same platform across many different facilities. And so it's if you hear something that just isn't acceptable, that doesn't mean we have to say stop. It doesn't mean we have to say no. It means we just have to work on it. We just have to overcome. We have to, engineer a solution, and we'll figure it out for you. That's all there is to it. That's our mission, as technology people or engineers myself. It's not a no. Let me figure it out for you.
So I want to talk a little bit about what's the future state look like in the Google Apps for Education environment. We're working on making different levels of OUs, and what I mean by that is how many teachers have experienced this? How many of you in the room, by a show of hands, have had kids purposefully do something so they can go? You have to relieve them from the classroom and send them back to the cottage. Has that ever happened? Okay. So what we're trying to do is set it up to empower the teachers to be able to move the students from one OU to another. So if you have the default OU that everybody comes into that has certain access, access to, and they have to respond responsibly. And if they go someplace, then you have no choice but to get them off the computer, so there's not any good in the classroom, so you send them back to the cottage. Well, Johnny goes back to the cottage and he's kicking it with his buddies back there. He might be watching TV. He might be playing video games or something like that. He might be placed out of group, but he's just sitting there not doing anything. So he's accomplished what he's wanted to do. So if we set up an OU that is a lower level or a more restricted level, that he can still do packet work or still do some form of work, and you can move him from the main OU down to that restricted OU, then you can keep him in the classroom. And it would avoid some of the students, anyhow, from taking that angle to be able to get out of school and then get rid of it. The other thing that we want to be able to do, and we're working on this, I'm working with Eden on this, is create a higher level OU for those students that are excelling and taking responsible choices, and maybe they want to work on some college stuff during the day. So we want to have those OUs in place. We also want to empower the teachers to be able to move the students themselves instead of having to call every time you move somebody, call your friendly neighborhood IT person to make the change happen. So those are some future state ideas that we're looking to do. And we feel that this is going to empower you to take control of your classroom instead of having to rely on somebody else to make those changes happen. Would that be of interest to the teachers in the room? That sound like a good thing? Okay. So there's your answer. And I know it's amazing what Eden's able to get done with his team that he's working on, and what he has to oversee. It's amazing. But these are just some future state things we're working towards. Also, we want to be able to archive students. So as a youth paroles out of OYA, and they go out home or go to another program, and then something happens, they have a PV, they come back into OYA. We want to be able to recover their stuff automatically. Right now, it's manually recovered. Is it automatic? We got it done. Maybe I didn't get the message. You're already ahead of me on that one. Okay. So what's supposed to happen is the students' names are supposed to be archived along with their content, and then if they come back in, because we use a unique identifier, they come back in the system with that same identifier, they could be reactivated and pick up right where they left off. Yes, sir. So the question, just for restating for recording, is isn't there a concern about youth taking documents and whatever they have, going from one facility to another and carrying them back and forth between facilities, right? So Eden, you want to answer that?
I mean, at the docs level, that is a concern, and you would need to have some vision into the drive itself or docs itself. But as you know, if a student moves from one facility to the next facility, that day that night at midnight, their account is moved between those facilities. As soon as they're moved, they become custodians of that student account becomes custodian of that OU, and that OU applies its restrictions instantaneously. So at one facility, you can go and you can go and play games. The second that you're moved, the day that you're moved, when you come into that facility, those games are no longer accessible because that student is now at the new facility, and it's subject to the rules that are applied by those administrators, etc. One domain for all of OIA, as well as several juvenile detention centers, and when they enroll in the juvenile detention center, that unique identifier follows them. If they go into OIA, if they go out, their account is disabled. When they come back, that account is reactivated, and they're actually building a portfolio. They're actually building a resume. They're actually, all those things, they follow them around. Now, if you have content concerns at the particular facilities, at one facility you are allowed music and the others you're not, that's a supervision, and we can help develop tools to be able, use Hapara or like tools to remove that content when they join your facility.
The last thing I want to touch base. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
There is an export ability out of Google. Your personal account, if you go into it, you can actually get all your data. There's a couple years back, there was a big movement to get all your data from Facebook, from Google accounts, etc. And that ability is there. I don't believe we have a process in place at the moment to do it. And it would probably be easier. It would probably be great if we added that to our wish list of to get an easier way of exporting that from the Google domain, and maybe we'll put that on our wish list to Google on how to get that content out to make sure that the students continue their successes when they leave the facilities.
And the last thing I have on here is, which we've talked about a little bit, if you've used Google Docs or Google Sheets before, Google Slides, you know that under the Tools section, there's a Resources search ability, and that isn't filtered the way that the rest of the website is. So we want to either be able to filter or remove the research links that are in the Docs and Sheets. And James and I, we've had that conversation a little bit last night. So we're on our way working on trying to find a resolution for that. So, yes, sir.
Yes. The account is a Google account. So whether you have Gmail turned on, whether you have Docs turned on, whether you have Vault turned on, those are all settings based on your administrative console, OU based. But yes, as long as you whitelist the appropriate app engine URLs, which I have in this domain, at least at the top level, there are inconsistencies depending on the organization. If they don't want that to happen, they can take that whitelisting out. But yes, they are Khan Academy. If that is whitelisted, that uses a single sign-on from Google pass-through authentication, and that URL is whitelisted, at least in our environment.
So this brings us to the close of this student security bubble. And as far as the support goes, I put it that as a dotted line because it's kind of in and out. You're just kind of reaching, use accessing the support as needed. So that gives a pretty good protection and also protects the public pretty good. Nothing is 100% fail-safe. Okay, and we all know that. We've all got experiences in that area. But what we've done is we've surrounded the student with the tools and the limitations so that we can minimize and be responsible with what the youth do access. So we can minimize the issues, also protect the public. Any other questions before we move on? And at the end of this, there's some contact information for Cascade Technology, for Tracy, Frank, and I from OIA, and also Todd at Softlink.